And now, please welcome Sarah Mantell.
Hi, everybody. It's really moving to know that people work all year to make these days possible and that people are working long hours to make them possible. And I'm really grateful to be here at my very first Swanee. I'm going to read from a little bit from my newest play, which is called In the Amazon Warehouse Parking Lot, which is a play about falling in love as the world ends. It's set in the future between a group of itinerant workers traveling between warehouses and searching the packaging labels looking for the people they've lost. One of the really cool things about being a playwright is that we're creating both art and also a hiring document. The roles that we write create jobs, and if we're lucky enough that that play continues into the world for a long time, that play creates a lot of jobs. And that's something I was thinking about a lot as I started this one, which is a play that's written for seven women, trans, and non-binary actors over the age of 50. And these are actors who I don't see good roles for them in the second half of their careers when so many of them are just hitting the peak of their ability. And in particular, when I do see them on stage, they're there to play somebody's mother or grandmother or like fun work friend, and very rarely at the center of a story, and also very rarely get queer love stories at that age, which I needed to imagine was possible in order to walk into what looks like sort of a scary future. In lieu of character descriptions, this play has a character note, which I'll read you. All of these characters are women or trans or non-binary. All of these characters are in their 50s to 70s. I can't stop thinking about the actors who have been pushed out of this business for looking too queer, too old, too fat, too disabled, etc. We have made these actors rare, and that's a tragedy. Please find them and cast them. I'm leaving the individual character descriptions as open as possible so that different productions can cast the particular humans who make each role sing. Whoever you are, I'm searching for you. Here are the specifications I know. Jen is androgynous or butch. Sarah is trans-feminine and high-femme. At least half the cast should be gender non-conforming. The majority of the cast should be BIPOC, and Jen and Sarah must be. I've used she, her pronouns for everyone in this draft, but please substitute they or he where it feels right for your rendition of these characters. And please remember, gender expression does not need to match gender identity, name, or pronouns. As a group, these actors should be all heights and sizes. Please throw fashion magazine ideas of beauty out the window. I am grateful for the original L word, but this play should look like its exact opposite. What I'm getting at is that these seven should look and feel like the actual queer world. So the piece I'm going to read you is pretty close to the end of the play, when this group of characters has just realized that they need to take down the Amazon warehouse, even if that means they might not survive without it. But this moment is like a tiny little eye of the storm after they realize it and before they do it. They're around a makeshift fire pit. I'm going to read you a little sort of like moment with a bunch of characters where I'm not going to differentiate between their voices. And then we get Jen and Ani, who are sort of our love story at the center of this. And the things that you need to know are that we sort of slowly learned that Ani didn't just show up at this warehouse. She came looking for Jen because she knew her brother. And that he died when the oceans took the coasts, and that the oceans have continued inward. Okay. So they've just discovered they need to do this, and Sarah says, I think we need to do it anyway. There's a moment of silence. Anyone wanna? Yes, yes I do. I have whiskey. I have that weed I've been saving for. Yes, get it. Yes. Ash, you still have those frozen waffles? They're freezer burned, but yeah, that's my drug of choice. My drug of choice is drugs, so get them. They pile all their goodies into the circle. Some of them smoke up or drink, others eat chocolate or freezer burned waffles. Jen hands Ani a mug of tea. Maribel offers Ani the whiskey. Want some? No, this is perfect. Someone gets out an instrument. Someone starts to play. Others sing. Maybe the same song over and over. I did this once in the middle of quarantine lockdown with Brandy's dying day. It was magic. On the steps of the van, Ani and Jen sit with one blanket over both of them, a bag of cheesy snacks at their feet, and their mugs. This is Jen, this is Ani. Are they playing? Yep. They sit there by the firelight for a while with their tea. Hey. Yeah? Are we falling in love in a parking lot? Yeah, I think so. That's not how I pictured things, but I guess we are. How did you picture things? Well, little kid me was convinced I'd meet someone at 18. Oh, really? And they'd be a man, and the whole country would still exist, and the seasons would be in the right order, and I wouldn't be this old, and it wouldn't be in a parking lot. I think that sounds like a terrible plan. Oh, yeah? Yeah, I think it should be in a parking lot with me. Okay. 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 Do I remind you of him? Oh. No. Sometimes, just a little. Sometimes in the right light, you look a little like him. Do I remind you of him? Sometimes. For a second, you'll sound like him, and then it's gone. They sit listening to the music for a while. I don't want this to be about him. I don't want it to be that. I know. Did you know? I mean about you? No, I mean about, is this about sex? Is this a question about sex? Yeah, it's a question about sex, and you're bringing this up now? I am. It's not that I didn't know that this, she gestures gayness. She gestures you. It's not that I didn't know, okay? It's just the way I felt about women was something that lived between me and the men that it was more something we had in common. Oh. I think I put it there because it felt safer that way. I know that sounds awful. Sometimes I feel like I can only do so much rewiring in my brain and my heart without it all coming apart. I know. No, this is the worst part. As long as you're hearing everything, you might as well hear this too. I saw people say, why not date a real man? Not someone who looks like one, or me. Yes. Like this was a copy of something else? A forgery? And I thought, I don't want a fake or a copy. I want something solid and true. I guess somewhere along the line, I just believed them. They huddle in tighter. I'm sorry. Why are you apologizing to me? I don't know. Are you apologizing to gayness? Am I all of gayness right now? You are all of gayness. You think they'll be ready to go through with this plan? We'll be ready. I thought I would like you. I knew I would like you. I didn't think I'd feel like this. Like what? Like when I walked into Outbound, I knew it was you before I saw your face. There was something about the air around you, like the air was vibrating around you, and if I got too close, what? Jen nudges her. Jen nudges her. What? They reach for each other. This moment is awkward and sweet and hot and particular to them. The sun goes down as the others keep singing. Thank you. Please welcome the magnificent Emilly Prado.
Can y'all hear me okay? Cool. So I'm going to read from my essay collection. One second. I'm going to read from my essay collection, Funeral for Flaca. You don't really need to know much, other than it's about my experience growing up brown in white suburbs and navigating a lot of the different themes of complexity that brings. My essay collection is also titled after different songs, so it's also a playlist which you can listen to. And this song / essay is La Llorona. In the middle of Mama Coyo's house in Aguililla, Michoacan, there is a tree with thick beige roots buried deep into the ground. Papa Nana lives there too, but I've become accustomed to referring to it as her house on account of my own single mother, the single mothers of all my friends, and the true matriarchs running households on both sides of my family. The tree in the middle of the house is majestic and several feet taller than the roof. Its branches sprout high up through a wide, squared opening in the roof curling over the kitchen and above the cemented pila holding this week's clean water. The tile that surrounds the tree, the walkway between the kitchen and the bathroom, has tilted uphill under its roots. It grew right before our eyes, even though no one noticed. If you're not careful and walk too heavy, you can kick a square tile loose. As kids, we'd climb up to the arms of the tree. We'd run to the tree for safety, for protection from Mama Coyo's viciously nippy macaw. One time, my sister Daniela wasn't careful enough and tumbled down so many feet onto her back. She cried, but she did not die. Growing up, I was sure it was because God had been watching. The hole in the roof of Mama Coyo's house is not an accident. It's more like a broad sunroof made without glass. If I chopped down the tree at the heart of this house, I could count the rings to tell you how old it is, but I can tell you instead that it was more than 2 embraces wide when I was 7 years old. It took almost 20 years before I saw anything else like it, another tree smack in the middle of a house. This house is where my papi grew up when he was blonde and blue-eyed for the first 2 years of his life. This is where my papi continued to grow when his hair turned black and his skin turned brown, and he lost 2 of his 9 siblings, one from a gunshot, another from a scorpion sting inside her baby cuna. This is the house I spent my summers in, growing up and into my morena skin and learning the feeling of what it's like to blend in for the first time. In Mexico, I learned the nicknames of every kid on the block and wore my own name proudly. My papi must have called me his flaca the first time he laid his eyes on me, a slippery, noodly, 22 inches long, 6 pounds light. Skinny girl doesn't have the same ring to it like so many other words that lose their poesy by way of translation, but his skinny girl I was. In Aguililla, I was also flaca, and there was the loud and wildly goofy Chucho. The rude-ass, gold chain-wearing bully was called Carlingas. Across the way were Ticho y Toco, the older sisters who were lifetime friends, one of which I pretend to be my aunt when my family helped her cross the border as I sat in the back of our Suburban. And a few blocks further out lived Canelo, the cinnamon-haired, amply freckled moreno. Plus, my little brothers, Flaco, Hector, and Gordo, Hector, were also nicknamed on account of their weight. My papi was given the nickname of Chayote when he emerged from the wound with hair eternally reaching high up into the sky. His strands, the prickly spikes of the chayote vegetable, known in English less beautifully as the Merleton squash. My mom's nickname is Chatia, a nickname passed down from her own mother's nickname of Chata, one given to people blessed with allegedly funny noses. My tia Delfina was always known as Concha, and when she died, my family wrote it on her funeral invitation with pride. Having witnessed nicknames lasting lifetimes and up to and beyond the grave, I did not know names could have an expiration date until my own had come and gone. I do not know when my own flaca was annulled, but maybe it was right after my 21st birthday. There was no coroner or grim reaper who appeared after the scale passed a certain number, nor a memo sent from my father alerting me my nickname was dead. What is the name for a grief that creeps in after losing something, mixed with the backdated guilt and shame of not really noticing? What is the nickname for a person who no longer embodies their name? What happens to a person who has become unrecognizable to some? What do we call a tree that's been severed from its roots? A person who has been robbed of their identity. Men in my family have come up to tell me I am no longer flaca. Women in my family have told me this too. When I told my mom a mustache man, some distant relative, approached me at my Papa Nano's birthday party and said he remembered when I used to be spaghetti, my mommy laughed. Spaghetti, she cackled. Spaghetti! She repeated the punchline back several times. But when my mom stops laughing, she tells anyone who will listen that she used to be spaghetti too. I am mad at the mustache man, but I'm even more mad at the mustache man for the sake of my mommy. Maybe I should have realized my provisional nickname was a challenge, the two syllables a double-edged sword yielding adoration and taunting, daring me to live up to my name, to govern the food that touches my lips when I can no longer eat without consequence. Flaca, a hissing reminder that I should hunch to make myself seem smaller, and that giving up on counting calories meant giving up on who I was born to be. Flaca is not a name to be earned, not a name for the weak. Flaca is not given to girls who are average or girls who teeter to the other side of BMI. Flaca is not to be given to girls who look like me. Sometimes I wonder what being seen as skinny again would give me, what I'd get in return if only I was thinner, if only my kind of overweight didn't result in a belly as rolly, if only my hips didn't jut out, disrupting that Kim K hourglass illusion, the only figure thicker girls are allowed to have. Sometimes I wonder what ribbons I'd win, what clothes Cosmo magazine would tell me I could finally wear, and what it would take for Papi to rechristen me as his flaca again. But then I remember there has never been a time I believed I lived up to my nickname of flaca. There was never a time I looked down at myself and thought, this body is so beautiful, I am such a skinny girl. There was never a time I was at peace with my body when I was convinced all I needed was at war. There was only the time when accidentally starving myself became purposely starving myself. The years when my mommy called me an anorexic without knowing how to help or take it more seriously. The sophomore year of high school, dotted by walking pneumonia, a sinus infection, half a dozen colds in the span of 6 months, the many seasons of feeling perpetually cold, the day nearing high school graduation when I looked up the signs of suffering from an eating disorder and checked off my matching symptoms: thinning hair, brittle nails, easily bruised, low immune system, low self-esteem. The same day as my matching symptoms, when I told myself that going through formal treatment wasn't an option because of the cost and sure to mortify family chisme. There was also the near decade of falsely thinking that recovery meant forcing food into my body, and in the years since, when grocery shopping still felt like an impossible math equation, every bagged item another calculation. Even now, when I feel like I'm constantly scanning my thoughts for corruption, filter what media and celebrity accounts I consume, and even though my fear of relapse still follows, I continue to search for my own version of healing. This house in Aguililla has witnessed and cycled right alongside my own family's births, growths, and deaths. I have not been back to this house in at least 12 years, but I have heard it, like me, looks different. My cousins tell me Mama Coyo has a new macaw, still as vicious as the last. Mama Coyo has retired from making cheese. The cows Papa Nano once herded back into the small rancho next to the house have been replaced by parked cars. And they've made me close the opening in the roof, chopping down the once sprawling tree. I think this is what change looks like. All I can think of is what's gone. This house is a casket where I will lay flaca and las vacas and Mama's first macaw to rest. At the funeral, I will dig a hole into the foundation and drop each letter of my old name one by one. I will stir the dirt with the remains of tree roots and say a prayer for us all for old time's sake. At the funeral, there will be no procession or eulogy, no explanations necessary, and for once, I won't be wearing all black. Thank you. And next up we have Liba Vaynberg.
Hi. So I was trying to decide what to read for this, and most of my stuff is about like Jews and women, immigrants, usually Ukrainian or Azeri of some sort. But recently, I've been writing more about animals and billionaires. Do with that connection what you will. In particular, I was asked to write a little short piece about a news story, and I was sort of going through different news stories to see like what popped out to me. Had to be something like recent in April or May. And I came upon this story from NPR, April 26, 2023. I'll read a little bit of it for you. California beachgoers have reported seeing thousands of Vilela along the shoreline recently, though they typically live far offshore. And their sails can explain it. There's a lot of exclamation points in this NPR article. They rely completely on the wind and ocean currents to move around, and when the conditions are just right, like with recent storms, they get pushed up onto shore. They lose the beautiful blue hue once they leave the embrace of ocean waters and die on shore, typically becoming grayish or transparent. And with no exoskeleton to keep their shape propped up, they shrivel up to resemble plastic. Their top predators include sea slugs and a special breed of predatory snail. The tiny disc-like critters are colonial hydrozoans classified under the phylum of Cnidaria, and their eponymous genus of Vilela, formerly titled Vilela, or known as by-the-wind sailors. They have a similar build to jellyfish. They are only a couple of inches long, and they have a small sail protruding from their bell, explaining the name and migratory pattern. They are actually an ecosystem or colony of animals, and if you look really closely, all those little things hanging down that look like tentacles are different organisms within the same colony, and they all work together kind of like coral and all have a different purpose. One is reproduction, one is feeding, and one is for defense. So I was like, oh my God, all these tiny little colonies are dying, thousands and thousands of them on a beach in California, and for no apparent reason. And I was struck, and I wrote a little piece, basically, about two of them. So I've asked Emily and Omalolu to read it. Two blue creatures on a California beach lay there, immobile. The sun sets behind them, dazzling burnt yellows and deep purples and angry oranges.
Well? I told you.
What?
I told you this would happen.
So?
Acknowledgement.
Of?
Would be nice.
Oh, calm down.
A sound, a phenomenally loud crunching, and then it stops.
Can't sense us.
If you can sense it.
That's not how this works.
Idiot.
Know-it-all.
Lazy.
Dictator.
One more enormously loud thud.
Oh God, oh God.
Stand up straight.
They're coming for me.
Put your sail up.
No, 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 no.
Take this gust like a true hydroza.
Stop that! What gust? That's not wind.
It was a metaphor.
What? It's, oh God. Skin? Is it skin?
Shade, don't argue. It's better not to argue.
What do I do?
Don't negotiate.
It's getting closer.
So the wind blows, a small relative of the mighty Portuguese War, from bubbles to bubbles.
Stop eulogizing!
This one did all they could. Known to some as a loud, conceited colony.
Shut it!
Couldn't bear the truth, not in life nor death.
Enough! Am I still here? Did it take me? Oh, fuck you! Is it gone?
You tell me.
It's gone.
How can you be sure?
A moment. They wait for the coast to be clear.
You know, they have these things called ears.
Who?
The sand shakers.
Deers?
Ears.
Yes.
How do you know that?
Oh. You float. You listen. You pick things up. If you don't always have your tentacles up, you're polyps.
Ask me what ears are for.
No.
Please.
Why?
What else are you gonna do?
No.
If you do, I promise I'll stop.
What are ears for?
NPR.
Good Lord, Valella.
What?
Where do you come up with this stuff?
No, it's true. They sit sometimes like we do. They let the wind move around them or move them. I don't know.
Monsters. Worse than slugs. Disgusting.
They ground themselves too.
Bullshit.
What?
They're always moving.
No, sometimes they sit.
Oh, yeah? And then what? What do they do with their rears?
Ears!
Whatever.
They listen to other sand shakers, ones that aren't close to them. It's probably because they can't hear inside themselves, unless they want to eat or reproduce. I think they listen to other people's colonies on NPR. Also BBC. Oh, podcasts.
If you don't mind, I'd just like to feel the sun.
Sorry.
You promised you'd stop. If I asked.
It's getting darker faster.
Palella,
Yes, Valella.
I'm cold.
Yes.
Are we?
Dying?
Yes.
Tide line.
What?
Just focus on the tide line.
So we are.
What?
I don't want to say it.
Stranded.
Stranded.
That's right, sailor.
Am I still blue?
Stupid question.
No, I heard the rot makes you gray.
Sun's down. How am I supposed to tell?
Don't lie.
Valella,
Valella.
you're not gray. You're near me.
So,
And that means that nothing terrible can happen.
how do you know what's gonna happen?
I know.
You do?
Absolutely.
Tell me? Please?
A sand shaker is going to get so close to us, we'll be able to see its rears.
Ears!
Have it your way.
That's what they're for listening.
Uh-huh. And then it'll take a big yellow bucket.
Oh, I know about those.
Oh, will you stop interrupting me?
Sorry,
A big yellow bucket.
I love those. Sorry. Don't stop.
Filled with the most beautiful water in the world. The freshest foam, the saltiest too. And then the bucket will move and you won't feel the crabs in the sand or the crystals or the hermits or the weeds or the plankton. You'll wonder again, am I dying? But then you'll capsize